Hello. I am so glad that you have chosen to join us today for this webinar that is addressing the high-quality pre-kindergarten component of teacher qualifications. My name is Tamala Olsby, and I am part of the Early Childhood Education Division here at the Texas Education Agency. Here is our agenda for the day, and you can see here are the topics that we're going to try to cover. We will do an overview of the high-quality pre-kindergarten components that are referenced in HB3. We will spend most of our time talking about teacher qualifications, and that will include some research and a description of what is required in statute, some frequently asked questions, and then we're going to even reach for higher quality and spend a little time talking about mentoring and coaching. And then we'll finalize our presentation with some resources and support items. So let's briefly look at the high quality components that are referenced in HB3. Texas has been on a journey for quite some time to increase the quality of its public pre-kindergarten programs. The link between positive child outcomes and the quality level of the pre-kindergarten program is a very well-researched subject. Let's look at this piece of research. It says not all pre-K programs successfully support early learning. It is decidedly not the case that just any pre-K program operating under just any circumstances will provide young children with the inputs they need to produce, let alone sustain, early developmental gains. And of course, that is what we want for our little ones, early developmental gains. That is what we're aiming for. We want our youngest students in Texas to attend a high-quality pre-kindergarten program. These are the high-quality pre-kindergarten components that are referenced in HB3 and are a requirement for every public pre-K program within Texas that is serving eligible 4-year-old students. You can see them listed here: curriculum, student progress monitoring, teacher qualifications, teacher-student ratio, family engagement, program evaluation, data reporting. The focus of this particular webinar is on teacher qualifications. And all the information contained within this webinar can be found in one of these 3 sources, either in statute, in Commissioner's Rule, or in HB3 itself. So here we go. What are the requirements that focus on pre-kindergarten teacher qualifications? Well, before we look at the requirements, I believe we should ask the question, why are we looking at teacher qualifications as a component of high quality? Well, look at this piece of research. One of the most consistent indicators of quality is the presence of a qualified teacher who has attained a bachelor's degree and some additional specialized content in child development or early childhood education. That is why we're looking at it today. We want well-qualified teachers. Let's look at this chart. This chart describes the 7 options for meeting the pre-kindergarten teacher qualification requirements that are within statute and Commissioner's Rule. This chart applies to any pre-kindergarten teacher serving eligible 4-year-old students in Texas. So let's look at them. There are 7 options, In the first column, you will notice it says appropriately certified to teach early childhood. And notice there are yes, 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 all the way down. So in every option, the pre-kindergarten teacher needs to be appropriately certified to teach early childhood. And usually the easiest way you can tell if a teacher has that certification is to look on their paperwork, and it should say EC, usually EC through 4, EC through 6, something like that. That means that the EC there means that they are appropriately certified to teach early childhood. But with that, in every option, there is an additional qualification that is now required. And so we're going to look at those very, very quickly. They either have to have a Child Development Associate credential in option 1. Option 2 says they have a Montessori certification. Option 3 says they've taught for at least 8 years in a nationally accredited child care program. Option 4 says they have a degree in early childhood education or special ed early childhood education, or a non-ECE degree, but they have 15 units within that degree of ECE specific coursework. Option 5 says, as they have to be appropriately certified. In addition to that, they have to have completed the Texas School Ready Comprehensive Program. Option 6 says, along with they being appropriately certified, they've completed 150 hours of professional development in ECE specific topics, and half of those hours have to be in a mentoring coaching relationship. And then the last option, 7, again, they're appropriately certified and they have completed 30 hours of ECE specific professional development annually, with 15 of the 30 hours being in a mentoring coaching relationship until all 150 hours are well documented. There is a lot on this slide, so we're going to go over each of these 7 options in a tad more detail. So let's look at option 1. And remember, in each of these options, it is important that the teacher is appropriately certified to teach early childhood. This is the option of having a Child Development Associate credential. And this credential is given by the Council for Professional Recognition, and it is a national credential. And there are several vendors here in Texas, including the Children's Learning Institute, that you can complete your CDA through. And look at all of the steps here. 120 hours of ed, there's an application, then there's hours of experience, a verification visit, an exam, a portfolio, family questionnaires. You can see this is a pretty long process, but a pre-kindergarten teacher who is appropriately certified to teach pre-K and who has a CDA credential is going to be very well equipped for their job responsibilities. Let's look at option 2. Another option is that they have a Montessori certificate from one of 2 accredited training centers. So is a little bit harder to get, a little bit more limited availability with these. Usually the requirements require a BA or a BS degree, and there is an academic component to it, usually 300 hours, and a practicum component, usually a 1-year internship with this Montessori certification. But again, we could note that if someone had an appropriate certification for teaching pre-K and who had a Montessori certificate, would be well prepared to teach pre-K. Our third option is teaching in an accredited site. And you have to do it for 8 years. And on this slide, we've given you examples of national accreditations that would qualify. Usually with these national accreditation, the process takes several years. The site must meet numerous high quality standards, including having a very highly qualified teacher. Option 4 says that the teacher, besides having a teaching certification, would have a degree either in early childhood ed or early childhood special ed, or a non-early childhood degree with a minimum of 15 units. So if your teachers are qualifying under option 4, you would actually have to take a look at their transcripts to check their coursework. In option 5, the teacher would not only be appropriately certified to teach pre-K, but they would have completed the Texas School Ready Comprehensive Program. And as you can see, this also has a lot of early childhood information in it. It is a 3-year, very intensive teacher intervention. There are a set of 26 trainings, and the Texas School Ready Comprehensive Program is available from the Children's Learning Institute. So again, as you can see, this additional qualification is very focused on early childhood. Our 6th option is that the teacher, this is a teacher that already has a current teaching assignment in a pre-kindergarten class, and they have already completed 150 hours that are documented in professional development. And those professional development hours are very ECE specific. Half of those hours, or 75, must be documented to be interaction with a mentor or an instructional coach. You might want to notice here that teachers within Texas need 150 hours of PD just to maintain their teacher certification. So this option is very similar, except that the PD must be very early childhood specific. You can go back 5 years in looking for professional development. And the last option, the 7th and last one, would be, again, the teacher would have a current teaching assignment in a pre-K class, and they are on a journey of completing 150 hours of PD. So annually, they would do 30. 15 would be in a documented professional development activity, and 15 would be with a mentor or a coach. And they would repeat this 30 hours in different subjects, obviously, just all being early childhood education specific, and they would do that until they reach the 150. This is the option currently that most pre-kindergarten teachers in Texas fit into. So when an individual earns their teaching certification, that usually means that they have a bachelor's degree and they've completed an approved educator prep program. And then when that teacher acquires one of the additional qualifications that we've discussed today, they would be considered a high-quality pre-kindergarten teacher. LEAs must have pre-kindergarten teachers who meet this high-quality component. So let's go through some frequently asked questions. The first one is, I have been a pre-K teacher for 20 years. I have 9 hours in specific ECE coursework within my degree. I have also taught in a nationally accredited site for 3 years. Have I met the additional qualification requirement? Well, pre-kindergarten teachers serving eligible 4-year-old students must meet one of the 7 options that we looked at earlier in that chart. Those options cannot be combined to create an additional option. So in this case, that teacher would not have met the additional qualification requirement. They would need either 15 hours of ECE specific coursework in their degree, or they would have had to have taught in a nationally accredited site for 8 years. Let's look at another frequently asked question. What is considered early childhood specific coursework? I've said that word several times. So what does that mean? Well, coursework that is early childhood specific covers the ages between birth and 2nd grade. So that definition is what is used throughout any of the times that I have mentioned those words. Anytime that it is referenced in an additional qualification option, that is what it means. So let's look now at even higher levels of quality when considering teacher qualification. What would that look like? It might be a good time now to remember our goal. Remember, we want positive child outcomes. And many of you already comply with this high quality component. You have pre-kindergarten teachers within your school district or charter that are appropriately certified, and they have an additional qualification. If so, how could you meet an even higher standard of quality? Well, here are some items that you might want to ponder. Does the LEA consider other unique qualities in the hiring process that are beneficial when teaching young students? That might include, how do you work with young students? And how do you engage young parents? So those unique qualities are very specific for the younger students in Texas, and LEAs would do well to consider those qualities when hiring. Could the paraprofessional that works in the pre-K classroom also participate in all of his professional development? Well, of course they could, and I think you could easily see why an LEA that trains not only their teachers, but offers that really good professional development to the paraprofessional in the classroom would reach an even higher level of quality in the classroom. Is the professional development offered to teachers linked to identified needs of students? So obviously the LEA, under most circumstances, is going to offer some PD for their teachers. Do you look at the needs of students to figure out how you can link the professional development that's offered to the teacher? That is really, really important. And you know what? With all this talk about eligible 4-year-olds, I have to interject here that we do not want to forget our eligible 3-year-old kiddos. And although the high quality components referenced in HB3 are directed at eligible 4-year-old students, we know that it is best practice that pre-kindergarten programs serving eligible 3-year-old students also adhere to the high quality components referenced in statute and commissioner's rule. And don't forget, your district's early education allotment can be spent on those eligible 3-year-old students. All right, we are now going to spend some of our time talking about mentoring and coaching, mainly because that's where most of our teachers are meeting this additional qualification. Let's look at what research says about really good professional development. The research literature supports the view that professional development done right, that is, content-specific training involving teacher teams, sustained efforts, and reinforced support with mentors and coaches can lead to increased teacher knowledge and desired classroom practice. That is what we want. So please note, when we are going over mentoring and coaching, we are talking specifically about option 6 and option 7. Mentoring and coaching could have been a part of any of the other options, but it is listed specifically in options 6 and 7. So what are the core elements of a mentoring coaching, of really good mentoring and coaching? Well, first of all, there needs to be a one-to-one relationship between the mentor coach and the protege or the teacher. It also needs to have on-the-job support that focuses on a specific early childhood, either set of knowledge, skills, or practices that can be used immediately in daily work with children. And another core element is that there is a shared commitment to continuous improvement, because that's what mentoring and coaching is all about. From these core elements, one can see that effective mentoring coaching is relationship-based between someone who's considered an expert and someone who is learning. It is most effective when the focus isn't on a global early childhood subject, but on a specific skill or teaching practice that a teacher could immediately implement in her daily work with children. Effective mentoring coaching also has this sense of being ongoing. It is not a one-time event. So who can be a mentor coach? Look at this list here. There's millions of people that could be a mentor coach. And any of these could be chosen within your LEA to meet that requirement. An early childhood expert, someone from an ESC, an instructional coach within your district, a supervisor, although I will say when using a supervisor to be a mentor coach, you want to make sure that the supervisory responsibilities are very much separated from the mentoring and coaching. A principal or another leader in the school district could be a mentor coach. A coach from another early childhood agency could be one. Even a peer teacher who is considered an expert in ECE or has expert knowledge about a specific early childhood skill or practice. I have written here 30% rule. And what that means is that if a teacher is a coach within a district, they can use their time spent coaching as counted toward part of their professional development as well. And that is the 30% rule. So what does a mentoring coaching cycle look like? Well, it has 3 parts, and it starts off with usually an observation of teaching practice with some feedback. Then there is collaborative and reflective goal setting between the coach and the teacher. And then the teacher implements some sort of an action plan that is focused on improvement in some area. And then it goes around again. The coach would observe, give feedback, there'd be collaborative goal setting. The teacher would then work on an action plan focused on improvement, which would lead to the next observation. And this cycle can be done lots of times during the school year. So how do you deliver mentoring and coaching? Well, there's several ways to actually implement it that I want to go over today. Probably the most known delivery model is just a face-to-face interaction. And that is between, obviously, the coach and the teacher. But mentoring and coaching can also be facilitated by a professional learning community. The difference in this model would be that the mentor coach is working with more than one teacher on the same teaching practice. So for this to be highly effective, you would want to pull together teachers that are working on the same skill or the same behavior, teacher behavior. And that way it works really well because they can not only learn from the expert, but also from each other. Another delivery model would include technology. And when doing this delivery model, I think the most often done method here would be that the teacher would videotape themselves, and then the mentor coach would watch the videotape. That would be the observation and would give feedback that way. And often this allows the teacher to be videotaped when they feel comfortable. And so this is also a very effective model of mentoring and coaching. It is also possible that you would combine these. It doesn't have to be one or the other. These can also be combined in several ways. It is important to recognize here that no matter which model an LEA is delivering mentoring and coaching through, all aspects of the mentoring coaching should have the same cycle. There should be observations with feedback, there should be collaborative goal setting, and there should be implementation of an action plan, no matter if it's done face-to-face, through a PLC, or through technology. You're probably wondering, how do I document all this? Well, it's important that the elements you document include at least the following: the name of the coach, the name of the staff member, what they're working on. So what is the focus of the mentoring? What topic, what ECE specific topic are you focusing on? And how much time have you spent in your activities? Districts and charters can use this documentation actually for future planning when they're looking at what to do for professional development for the next year. And this documentation can also assist the teacher in renewing their own Texas teaching certification. So let's look now at some resources and support that may assist you in complying with this high quality component. We've talked about Children's Learning Institute, so there is a link there to their website. Even the Education Service Centers is often where the teacher preparation programs are held, so you might want to look at that. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with TechPads, but if you're not, you will definitely want to go on their website. This is a method of putting into a computer, if you will, documents that support the professional development that you have received. And a teacher can do this, and then their supervisor can look at it. And it's a good way for someone to document all their professional development because it's all held in one place, which is a really good method of doing it. If you are not familiar with the book, Partners in Action, a mentoring toolkit for early childhood providers, I've put the link here and you can download. It's probably calling it a book is a little strong, so it's a brochure or whatever, but it has really good information if mentoring and coaching is fairly new to you. And then last but not least is our early childhood program self-assessment documents. Those are meant to provide LEAs a method of documenting their program evaluation. So when they're evaluating their entire pre-kindergarten program. But it does have sections in there on teacher qualifications and specifically mentoring and coaching. We've also developed for you a high-quality checklist, and it can be used to document areas of strength or proficiency and opportunities to grow in the area of teacher qualifications and professional development. And the items listed here are either from statute or commissioner's list, or they are items that would represent even higher quality than what is in statute. As always, the Early Childhood Education Division here at the Texas Education Agency is ready and willing to support you in your high quality efforts. So there is a link here to our website, and you can email us for additional support when needed. I want to end our time together today with a quote. Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best they can possibly be. This was said by Rita Pearson. Guess what occupation Rita Pearson had? You guessed it, she was a teacher. She was a champion. Thank you for joining us today for this important topic, and we hope that the information shared will help you on your journey toward even higher quality within your pre-kindergarten program.